The idea was to try to talk for a little bit about our project, or at least our collaboration, and try to give a little bit of a context for some of the pictures and describe the project more generally. You probably figured out that it's about, for this particular installation, describes or tries to describe sections of 4 different rivers. They're eastern rivers, and they're rivers that are in, I think, a really interesting moment in their history and transition. The river that I started with, and Matt and I started talking about, is the river that runs right next to the studio that I work in Brunswick, called the Androscoggin. And the more we talked about the Androscoggin, and the more that I looked at it and started to think about it, realized that it was, and talked to people who had knowledge of that river before we moved to Brunswick in 2000, the fact that the river was one of the most polluted rivers in the United States. And it was sort of fascinating to us as newcomers to the area to talk with people who had past knowledge of the river, to realize how much it has changed. From people telling us in the 1950s, 1960s, and even 70s, their experience of this river smelling so bad that they couldn't come near it. It made them physically ill. And then we come to Maine and spend time near it, and realize that it's actually a place there's bald eagles and there's fish in it. We talked to biologists that mentioned in 1970 the river was biologically dead. Nothing was alive in it. So how is it that this place is now being thought of and being perceived? And that transitional moment for the river was something that we thought was fairly compelling. And a wonderful example of a place that was changing over time, and that how do we perceive these changes, and how do we think about these things? And the river itself, for me, also has become this amazing kind of embodiment of a place that's in constant flux and constant change. And I think it's true of any place that you want to think about and look at. It's always the case that it's constantly changing, it's constantly moving, but it's not necessarily always perceptible, those changes, or being able to mark those changes. Well, a river, you go down to it, and every day that you go down to it, I was amazed at how different it was each day that I went. The levels were changing, what was coming down it was changing, the shore shape was always changing, the temperature of the water, the smell of it sometimes. It was just a really interesting dynamic experience of change, of a changing place over time.